Fox News Alert as we welcome you back to Outnumbered Now, a situation that we're watching. We're awaiting new reaction to the Israeli Prime Minister's speech to Congress, reaction from Democrats. And I've just found from our producer in D.C. that some 60 or so had formally said that they were going to boycott. We don't know the exact number because they don't take attendance. But we know that the list included Al Franken of Minnesota, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts on the senatorial side, and many House members, including some members in the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman Ellison among them. Let's watch and listen.
Some who attended the event, some who didn't, but all of whom have something to say about his appearance. First of all, again, these remarks are only attributable to me. Everyone can speak for him or herself. First, I'd like to congratulate Speaker Boehner and Prime Minister Netanyahu on a very impressive bit of political theater. Now the Prime Minister can go home to his campaign and say he lectured Congress and the American people on things that apparently we didn't know. I think the speech validated all of the reasons I said I was opposed to the speech. I expected the Prime Minister to speculate on and mischaracterize the negotiations and a potential deal. For instance, he continually said that the deal ends in a certain period of time, and there are no restrictions, would be no restrictions on Iran's nuclear program after the deal expired. That is not the case, as we have been advised by the White House. But again, this is part of the strategy that he used. I resented the condescending tone that he used, which basically indicated that he didn't think anybody in Congress or the country understood the threat that a nuclear weaponized Iran poses to his country, to the region, and to the world. I think the president has made it very clear we understand that threat. I don't think that there is any doubt that everyone in Congress and the administration understands that Iran has been a bad actor in the region, that it has sponsored terrorism, that it has done things that we would like to see changed. We all know that. It's nice of him to remind us. And I also resent the fact that he was telling us how to negotiate when the administration and their representatives have been at this for 2 years now with the cooperation and participation of 5 other major nations in the world. This speech was straight out of the Dick Cheney playbook. This was fear-mongering at its ultimate. Phrases like essentially saying nuclear war is inevitable if this deal were to be accepted. Phrases like this would pave the way to Iran having a nuclear bomb. These are things that I think are, again, part of what Dick Cheney would have done and did. This has been Prime Minister's pattern. He's gone to the UN and done the same thing. I understand, and as all of us do, all of us who desperately support Israel and care very deeply about Israeli security, that Israel perceives its threat differently than we might. But I don't think there is any question that the administration and all of us understand that threat and are trying our best to thwart it. My final comment, Prime Minister Netanyahu basically said that the only acceptable deal was a perfect deal or an ideal deal. It's like the child who says, I want to go to Disneyland every day, eat ice cream and drink Coca-Cola every day and not go to school. That would be a nice life for a child. But this is very serious business, and it is being conducted in a very, very real world. Idealism is fine, as William F. Buckley once said, but as it approaches reality, the costs become prohibitive. And in this case, I believe that insisting on the ideal deal, again, in a world where things constantly change and realities change, is something that for which the cost would be prohibitive. And those costs would be a lost opportunity to put an end to Iran's nuclear program. And with that, I would like to introduce David Price of North Carolina.
Thank you, John, and good morning. As John said, the members here individually made our decisions about attending the speech, but what we're united in is our determination to learn from this controversy, the controversy that surrounded the speech, and to move on to reinforce the U.S.-Israel, a security relationship, and to protect the world against a nuclear-armed Iran. Speaker Boehner should never have extended this invitation at this time, given the proximity of this speech to Israel's national elections and the fact that delicate international negotiations, which the Prime Minister clearly wishes to upend, are hanging in the balance at this moment. And Prime Minister Netanyahu should not have accepted this invitation, which was extended without the usual consultation of bipartisan leadership and the normal notification of and consultation with the President. For these reasons, the invitation and the speech set a dangerous precedent whereby congressional leaders from one party can invite a foreign politician to publicly oppose the policies of the sitting president on the House floor. In doing so, we not only tarnish the grand tradition of the joint session, we also run the risk of politicizing diplomatic relationships, in this case, a very special relationship dedicated to Israel's security and prosperity. But the speech has happened. Now we have to determine the best way forward. We must give due consideration to what the Prime Minister has said, which of course isn't dependent on the form in which he said it. We must also subject his charges and claims to intense scrutiny. For example, the notion that everything has to be solved in terms of our bilateral issues before anything can be solved. For example, the description of the deal which makes an agreement seemingly totally out of reach. We must redouble our efforts to protect Israel, the region, and the world from a nuclear-armed Iran. These are tough negotiations. Of course they're tough. But there are no good alternatives to bringing a comprehensive, strong, and enforceable agreement to fruition. It is extremely important for us and for the international community to stay on that course. Through all of this, our commitment to a safe and secure Israel must remain firm. An open dialogue is critical to that process. I and all of us, I think, stand ready to engage with Israeli leaders from across the political spectrum. This speech today wasn't about whether we agreed or disagreed. It was about the circumstances of this invitation and the lasting damage it could do. But it's our job now to get past this controversy, to focus on the task at hand, securing the relationship with Israel and securing an enforceable international agreement that will prevent a nuclear-armed Iran.
Wow. Have you been watching and listening to this? Two words come to mind: acrimonious and political. The Democrats reacting to Netanyahu's speech today. Some of them attended, some of them did not. We're going to pull away from the lectern right now just to digest some of what was just said. Let's go in reverse order. Congressman David Price, Democrat from North Carolina. The speech sets a dangerous precedent. Melissa, you shouted, this is democracy.
Right. Yeah, the dangerous precedent was that folks from other nations who oppose a sitting president can come and address Congress for the American people. Oh, no. Yeah, we can't allow that. We don't want opposing viewpoints to be aired. Isn't that the very heartbeat of our country? Isn't that democracy, that you disagree publicly, you hash issues out? Are you so afraid to let the other side hear the argument?
We want to let everybody know we are keeping a close watch on this, and our team in our control room is listening to this. We can go back at any moment, but we want to talk about some of the verbal flame throwing that was just coming down. Nothing particularly surprising, I heard you say, Andrea, because we knew that Democrats were angry about the speech, many of them boycotting. I gave some loose numbers earlier, maybe of those who wouldn't show up. But to hear John Yarmuth, Congressman, Democrat from Kentucky, say these words, he can go home, Netanyahu. You had a visceral reaction.
That was surprising. I mean, he basically said, you can go home, you can go back to your country, and you can tell them how they lectured Congress. This was more than openly hostile and acrimonious. I mean, this was disrespectful. It was in poor taste. It was arrogant. It was condescending. And frankly, he was projecting. I mean, everything that he accused the Prime Minister of doing, he was doing. And then to accuse this of being political, to drag in Dick Cheney somehow and talk about fear-mongering, that was the most political line that I've heard in weeks come out of a Democrat's mouth on Capitol Hill. Harris, I know how these things work. When I worked on Capitol Hill,
sure.
The White House calls up. They see which attack dogs they can put out there to do a press conference. They put the one that's going to say, you know, the strongest rhetoric out there first. That's exactly what they did. I don't think that this did them any favors. But I was actually really surprised at the tone that they took took with their response.
And Yarmuth tried to say, oh, thanks for the speech. We already know all this. Well, guess what? The American people, they don't know a lot of this. They don't know about the ties between ISIS and Iran fighting for that hegemony.
All right. We're going to go away for a quick commercial break and come right back. This is still happening, this news conference. We're covering that. All the breaking news as it happens. Stay close.